Yes, guys, welcome back to the squad on TDK Plus. That's right, your therapy has arrived. We are here to break down what has been a interesting 24 hours after a tough afternoon at Wembley. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you hit this like and subscribe on whatever platform you are on. We're going to try and get into the game from every single angle, what this all means, and all that good stuff. But we can't do it alone. And I'm here with Mr. Rohan Jivan. Hello.
Hello, my man.
And I'm also here with Mr. George Voutsas. Hello.
Hello, good sir.
Boys, we're recording 5:30 on Monday afternoon. I'm looking forward to the next 2 weeks. This is going to be fun. This is one of the things, I remember, Rohan, we spoke about it, like if we lost it, holding the L for the next 2 weeks is going to be tough. So we'll start the process of that. Yes, it has been a tough old time. Rohan, I'll start with you. I know you did the instant reaction, but how are you feeling 24 hours later? What's the latest?
Instant reaction was very interesting. Had to have a go at a few people and don't care. Lots of blocks going through, don't care. It felt right in the moment. I was very sad yesterday, and Arsenal losses usually do hit me. That one hit me. It didn't hit me the most out of some of the games we've had this season, if I'm honest with you. For me, Brentford away, that draw, I mean, we might look back at that being a very good point, to be fair. That really hit me. This one, I still need to rewatch it back. I need to gain the clarity. You know what I'm like. I don't like just looking at how other people analyse the game from what they've seen. I like to do it with my own rewatch, and I do need to do that. I'm going to do that today. My initial feeling from the EIR was that I felt the second half, that was one of the only times I've seen Arteta not react quickly enough to a Pep Guardiola way in a game, which I was a bit disappointed with because he's usually on board there. But after reflecting, been thinking about it, I'm feeling rather sanguine. There's your word of the day.
The X word of the day.
We've done that.
We have done that again.
Back.
We're going to do it again. I'm feeling optimistic. I do think that despite it being frustrating, despite the fact that it came in a final, despite the fact that it came against them, I have a feeling that this will put us in good stead for that return fixture at the Etihad. You know, Man City might do something different, but I believe what they did on Sunday, he didn't do anything majorly innovative, you know, and that's what's annoying, that we didn't find ways to stop it. But I feel that won't happen again at the Etihad. They might do something else, but law of averages, when I look at the fixtures that we've had against Pep under Mikel, this is a little bit more of an anomaly, in my opinion. And I feel like he won't make that same mistake at the Etihad. And yeah, well, it's one of those ones they've kicked us. They've given us one of those ones right there, just bang. But I reckon we'll react. And I do think this team's response, when they have lost this season, the first time we lost, I think we went on an 18-game unbeaten run. Then there was a 14-game unbeaten run. Then there was a 12-game unbeaten run. You know, so there's the copium in me. Although I don't think it is copium. I do believe that we'll still be good. But that doesn't mean we won't criticise, which we will do today. So.
Yes, I think we might have to tread in those waters. I was there. What's a shame is it started off so well. Started off so well. I have to tell you, like, the atmosphere was really, really good. It was a really nice day. You know, I went with my mate Finn. Like, we tried to get him a ticket and stuff, and we met loads of people. We're chatting loads of people. Went in. The Arsenal fans sounded amazing. I could see them. Like, honestly, at points it sounded like a home game. I was sat like slightly above and to the left of the City fans, and I could only hear Arsenal fans for the first like at least 5-10 minutes, and for the sort of 10 minutes into the build up. And it really felt like it was set up to be our day, especially with the way the game started. With the early Kai Havertz chance, with the way we started the game in terms of where we were playing the game, how we were playing the game, and it really felt as though it was going to be our day, and it didn't transpire to be that. And yeah, the hard thing now is trying to pick through, as you say, what is what is worth our time and going like, what do we need to fix about this team? And what is just the reality of sport that sometimes you lose. You sometimes go to a game and you lose, and that happens. And, how do we sort of hold those two truths as always? And it's been one of my big themes this season. Where do you need to move the needle? Where do you need to critique? Where do you need to ask questions of this team? And where do you need to say, it's our fourth loss of the season, and it's a really, really hard thing. And we're trying to thread a very particularly difficult needle. George, same question really to you. 24 hours on, how are you holding up?
I think I had a much more pessimistic view of this game. So in lead up, and it doesn't make sense to people, but I did not have a good feeling about winning the Carabao Cup. I have a strong opinion about winning other major honors that I've said consistently, but the Carabao Cup, I did not have a good feeling. And I'll be honest with you guys, I feel fine about the season, but I'm really annoyed. And it's hit me quite hard because I do think that there's certain patterns that we can look at with this team as far as one-off knockout games that have happened over the last 6 years with Mikel. And it's not often, but I do actually think that he lost us this game in many respects. As far as his reaction goes in the second half, and it's probably unfair because we are a second half team this season. Traditionally, we are much better in second halves than we are in first. So this is one of the first times that got flipped. However, I really felt there were things that we could have done. And I think what really hits me more than anything is when the team doesn't react and doesn't give me aggression. And I don't see a team that I've used to define Mikel Arteta's philosophy with. When I don't see a team compete for second balls effectively, when I don't see a team in the press close their distances quite well. And I think what frustrates me is that it seems to be a pattern in one-off games. And this margin control, I'm really starting to get annoyed with what we pick up and what we don't. For example, when we talk about the press conferences with Mikel after the fact, and I look at the match, it is we missed that chance early on in the game. And 2 games later, it's Martinelli missed the chance early in the game. I don't like that because the principle is the same, but his application of it is not consistent. And I don't think you get to do that when you haven't won. And when a lot of those decisions about how we play, you don't have to like it. And I've been saying this all season. You don't have to like how we play, but you cannot argue its effectiveness. But when the effectiveness does not translate into a trophy, which is the demand, you're going to be asked a lot of questions. And so I think there's some stuff to tease out, to be honest with you, especially with our squad management application. I look at Martin Zubimendi, I look at Miles, I look at Calafiori, I look at Gabriel Magalhaes, as far as having conversations that I think, he struggled with since his past injury. There's I think something to be said for how we deal with mistakes, let's call it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if everything has been fair, in terms of some of the application that we've had in certain moments, which I thought came to a head in this game. And it just frustrates me because Mikel is not somebody who lacks innovation. Mikel is not somebody who I think doesn't have a plan for the big boys. And that's what annoys me, that I've had to hear stupid rhetoric that just isn't the case about this team, but be talked about that this is the character of this team when it isn't. And I think that's what shocks and hurts me the most when I see a team that I don't recognize. I think the big conversation I've been struggling with, guys, and it's been hurting me more as the hours keep going on, is how we lose. And at some point, I'm sitting there saying, I'm okay to play. I don't like how we play, but I'm okay to play this way if you believe it will win you things. But don't go and start taking away pillars that made you successful, like winning second balls, like being aggressive out of possession. And the press really annoyed me in this match. It really did. The fact that Pep went zonal, and we'll probably talk about the intricacies a little bit later, but the solution to it was something that we defined our resurgence in. So why didn't we lean into what made us special? I have no clue, and I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah, I think there was a certain loss of identity in that game, which I think was really, really tricky. Let's try and piece our way through it. Let's try and sort of blow up some of these conversations. I think before we do, look, I know people, before they've heard my critique later, might roll their eyes at this sort of stuff, but I do think things like the boys having to stand on the pitch after and watch City lift that trophy. I don't know, maybe it's just the deluded optimist in me, but I think something like that is really important. And I really, really hope this was the game where we've had a few of these through the season. So, this is going to be the Man United 3-2. Like, this is going to be the game that actually finally sort of, we stop making the same mistakes. I sort of hope that this was the game. And the reason I say that is, like, I was saying this yesterday, it does feel like we've had so many near misses as a team. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. But in terms of finals, like literal finals that we've lost, first one. Yeah. Community Shields, FA Cups, and we haven't reached that many. So you can absolutely make that argument. I'm not saying that. But, in terms of finals under Mikel Arteta, that's our 5th trip to Wembley under Mikel and the first time we've lost. There is something in losing in a fight. You can, 22-23, you run out of players basically and you're too young. And, last season, the injuries, whatever, you can go through and make certain, was it this game, was it that game? The reason we lost the Carabao Cup in 25-26 was one game. And sometimes the sort of pointedness of the pain, I think, can inspire something. So I really hope it does. And I've been trying to think about this sort of international break, whether it's a good time or a bad time. And you could argue both ways. I think I fall on the idea that it's a good time, a good thing. And we've seen a number of players, Gabriel pull out, Saliba pull out. Obviously, Ben White's been recalled to the England squad, but I think that's a good thing to keep him in the rhythm because I think he needs that. I actually thought Ben White was a positive yesterday as well, for large parts. Other players who've pulled out of international duty, Trossard, etc., etc. I hope this can be a reset point. I really do, and I really feel it will be. And I hope we can get that to the end of the season. But we do need to talk about some of the problems in this game. Boys, I don't like doing lineup analysis because I think it often it's not particularly it's not relevant, but the more interesting thing is the intentions. What's the balance? What's what you're trying to do with a lineup? If I know you're trying to counterattack and you're picking, Kai Havertz, or actually that's probably not fair, but let me not use our players. If I know you're trying to do a certain thing and you're picking players who don't do that, then I can critique the lineup. But I need to know what your intentions are. But I think Kepa was a mistake, and the further away from this game I get, the more convinced I am of that. I just think forget the intentions, forget the fact that those clips going around of Ben White out on the flanks and Kepa's not playing that ball. Forget the mistake. It's not even about the mistake. Players make mistakes. It's simply the fact that we aren't Pep. Pep has won 40 major trophies. So to give me, but he played James Trafford, I don't care. I don't care. We are here to win the Carabao Cup. We are here to win our 2nd major trophy for Arsenal Football Club in 9 years. Pick your best team. And I said it all week. I was saying it on the knockabout. I said it on the squad last week about who I'd play. And you boys called it. You said he would go for Kepa and fair play. But I kept saying he must pick Raya. And forget the mistake. Forget the fact that the way City pressed completely set us up for and I think they wouldn't have pressed in that way had Raya been in goal. Absolutely not. Forget all that. Just the simple principle of playing your best players in a game that is really, really important. It really upset me. Rohan, where are you at with that?
Okay, so we've been saying, I think if we go back to the semi-finals against Chelsea, I think both of you in the first leg would have started Raya, I believe. And I said I'd give Kepa the go. And then in the second leg, I thought, okay, my God, let's start Raya. Because it's about controlling the controllables. And again, what I would have done, I would have picked Raya, obviously. I think every Arsenal fan would have probably picked Raya. I do think they would have pressed the same way with Raya there, personally, but I think we would have had more solutions. But I think he would have... I don't think that the way they pressed was exclusive to Kepa being in goal, personally. I just think that Kepa being in goal was certainly a massive hindrance to us being able to escape that pressure. I do see the other side, though. I think it's a little bit more of a difficult decision to make than what we give it credit for. You know, I know Pep's won trophies in the past, and he had a massive reputation coming into Man City. I mean, before he came to Man City, he'd lost the league title to Mourinho at Real Madrid. Mourinho at Real Madrid, and I think they hit 100 points. And then in Bayern Munich, he didn't lose a league title at all. So only Mourinho managed to eclipse him to a league title. But when he came to Man City, the EFL Cup was his first trophy that he won. He did start Claudio Bravo in that game. And Edison was their first choice. Jurgen Klopp has started Kelleher consistently in the cup competitions. I know they have more credit in the bank in terms of the trophies, but I do think there is the side of empathy and the human side to it of recognising that he is the cup keeper. He has played from start to finish. It's not what I would have done, but I think it does set a precedent for second choice goalkeepers in the future. I do believe that. If you're willing to start your cup keeper all the way to the final and then you're saying, right, binning you off, we're going to play our first choice in the final now. I don't know. I don't think that comes across particularly nicely. And he's just not the only person who has done that when you compare him to other managers as well. So I would have done Raya, 100%. This is what I'm saying. But I'm personally, I look at other things in that game more than just Kepa being the sole reason for it. Now, I may be contradicting myself because Kepa, if he doesn't make that mistake, it's still 0-0. We've had a poor period after half-time. You'd think that we'd be able to grow into it a little bit more. But at the same time, I just feel like there was a trend happening in that second half that I didn't like. That wasn't just exclusive to Kepa. There were a couple of other individuals as well. So, yeah, I that's how I feel about it. I think it's a little bit more... I'm not going to berate Mikel on that decision personally. I'd berate him on other things personally. So, yeah.
I hear that. And I also think in any analysis of this, it's not, and this is not what you're saying, but I've had it from a few people of sort of like, yeah, but it's not just Kepa's fault. No one's saying that. But, you know, if your house is on fire and you set 15 fires, you can say one of them was a problem. Like there might be 14 other fires, but you shouldn't have set 15. You see what I mean? There can be as many problems as you want, but one is still a problem. And I just think if the argument is an empathetic argument, it doesn't hold much weight to me when Kepa is a guy who's 31, who we signed for £5 million, who's not an asset I think we're looking to hold on to massively. The worst case scenario in this situation is we lose Kepa because he's frustrated about that. Maybe, you know, a second choice goalkeeper coming in next season could say, yeah, but if we got to the League Cup final, you know, you didn't play Kepa. But I think it's so far down the list of like possible ramifications of that. Oh, what if? Ultimately, Arsenal's job is to win the next game and to win a trophy. And I think I'd be, you know me, I'd be way more open to the person-centered, empathetic side of things if we were in Pep's position. If we were, and also Pep, you know, unfortunately, Jamie Carragher made quite a good point about this. Pep kind of has put himself in that situation with James Trafford because he signed him ostensibly to be the number one, from what we understand, and then signed Donnarumma after him. So he kind of does owe him. We don't owe Kepa anything. And he could leave this summer and we could sign another backup keeper or promote Tommy Setford or whatever it might be. And I would do that 100 times out of 100 if it meant giving Arsenal a better chance. Again, does it mean Kepa's the only problem? No.
I hear that.
But I think it sets a principle for me. And I didn't like it. I especially when we're in the position that we're in, especially against them. You know, if it was against, you know, Leicester, whatever, but it's a different conversation. But yeah, George, go on.
Yeah, like, I mean, I remember when we had this debate, even in the semi-final, like, again, I wouldn't have done it. But I did bring up the coaching aspect. Like, a coach would do what Mikel has done, and a manager might do a different decision. And that, to me, was something that I feel like we needed to make. Like, we needed to give ourselves the best chance of winning, because this team has a problem with it. Like, you can't run away from that. And, you know, the issue that I've got is, okay, if you want to make the empathetic argument towards, you know, starting Kepa, where was the empathetic argument towards starting a Miles? To other squad players that have got you to the point in terms of getting to the final, and then you play your starting 11. Why? Because you want to win, and there's no issue with that. But we do make that concession for an outfield player, and I think that this discussion is uniquely more prevalent for a goalkeeper because it really is one in, one out. Not to make a joke out of it, but it becomes more of an issue because the idea of squad sharing within a squad is more open with a player. Like there's just more opportunities throughout a season to do that. Whereas keepers, there's a finite amount. It is between two people. Period. End of story. And so the management side is a much bigger question. My issue is though that this team is too nice. This team in one-off games has a tendency to be passive. And it buys into that theory when the lineup comes out. And I'm telling you, if everybody had a look at it, and you know, and they saw Raya on the team sheet, I'm telling you that would have thrown Pep. It would have thrown Pep. And it would have thrown, I think, the broader media, to be honest with you, because everyone expected Arsenal to do the right thing. But we haven't been doing the right thing all season, as far as dark arts, as far as set pieces, as far as setting out to win things in a completely different way. There was scope for me, for Mikel, to do that if he wanted. I did say in the IR, I don't believe that highlighting Kepa should be a mistake because I think it's a cop-out. I think it's a cop-out to the team and the manager. But I can't hide that it's not something I would have done. I still feel that when we have a look at it in totality, this is a team, I tend to agree with Alex, that hasn't earned the right to suddenly become empathetic on squad management, which, by the way, is something that Mikel has struggled with his entire career. He's not been empathetic and has not been fair to squad members throughout his entire career. So I think to like pick and choose the empathy argument seems difficult for me for a team that hasn't won major honors in years. Very, very difficult. And then even more so, the mistake we'll see that's even more so a bad mistake. That to me is correlation without causation, because that can happen to anybody. And I could tell you tons of mistakes, in my opinion. I look at Havertz. Guys, that's a mistake. Like if we're going to kill Gyökeres as far as having easy chances go, that's a tap in, you know? So you can misconstrue an individual mistake any which way. I just hate giving the opposition a leg up when we didn't have a leg up to give. This is not a team that's won, and that's really where I draw the line on it with.
That's my position, exactly. It's my position, exactly. It's not, forget Kepa, forget the mistake, forget all the tactical issues, you know, I understand it, but basically we're going empathy over ruthlessness. And I would actually like, you know, I actually think 90% of Arsenal fans would be on the other side of this, but say we'd won something already, I might be on the empathy side. I might be like, actually, you know,
my opinion would be different.
Yeah, to give a squad member, you know, his due. I'm sure he works hard, and also it's different. You know, we're judging from the outside. We're not in the group. We're not there every single day. They'll have connections and relationships and stuff, and it's much harder. It's easy for us to sit here and say drop Kepa, but to say to him, you know, to be Mikel Arteta, to look him in the eye and say that. But also, Kepa has to understand the position that Arsenal Football Club are in, and ultimately that has to come first. So for me, yeah, I put that there. As I say, it's not the only issue, and we're about to get into some more, but I do think it sort of started there. I actually have not consumed any Arsenal content, so I did not listen to the instant reaction. So forgive me if I'm going over old ground here, and hopefully you can find some new shapes here. We sort of mentioned the press. We mentioned City's zonal approach and our lack of solutions. We've spoken about the lack of solution from the goalkeeper in terms of those balls out to the fullbacks. Also, I think particularly Man City, again, leaving that space in the middle where we should have played the ball into, because they were dropping Bernardo and Rodri back to make those often 4v2s and sometimes even 6v2s against Havertz and Gyökeres when the wingers were wide. So we just basically lost every single ball and we went long. We did not have a good day from a dual perspective. But there is another solution that we've spoken about many, many times when a team is pressing you like that we just don't do, and it's carries. And I saw a tweet which I don't agree with, but someone said, "Can you remember the last time you saw an Arsenal player play a 1-2?" And I was like, huh. And I'm sort of approaching that with the carries of sort of someone picking up the ball and driving through the centre of the pitch and getting us up the field. And I'm sure there are examples and people say this one, that one, this one, that one. But it doesn't feel like the shape of our game massively leans into that. And when you're up against the press in the way they did, which I'm sure you covered on the instant reaction, it frustrated me. We can talk about Miles if you want, but if we have Saliba, if we have Declan Rice, if we have Zubimendi who can do that, if we have a Ben White, if we have a Calafiori coming on, there are enough players there who can do that, and it feels like an instruction. So Rohan, I'll bring you in on this. when the distances, I don't know if you saw any like the pass networks or like the average location maps or whatever, but we're so spread. We're so spread, and we're trying to cover that distance with the ball. And then we have a conversation about, as in passing. And then we're constantly, people are talking about, technical quality. We're dropping the ball. And I completely hear that. But when you're being asked to play a ball to someone, 25 yards away compared to 18 yards or 10 yards away, it's a different conversation, and you can misplace that a lot easier. Talk to me about the carries. Why don't we see them? Why is this something
right. So I think in general, the team in the middle of the park, right? And this is where I think the Miles frustration increases. It compounds because and this is not exclusive to the Man City game, but teams are becoming a lot more man-to-man. We've said it many times. This wasn't really a man-to-man game anyway against Man City. This is just a general view of how we can kind of combat the current meta. Arteta said in his press conference that, the game has become more man-to-man, and if you change the rules, we'd be able to have a bit more space, etc. I don't think he necessarily believes that completely. I just think he's giving some context of why the game has become a lot more long bally. It's become a lot more loose ball game. But if you look at Arsenal in terms of how they play out of a man-to-man press, they have a couple of sequences, but they're all passing sequences. It involves the goalkeeper playing the ball pass into the guy receiving it in midfield, then he plays it to the free centre-back, and then we're away. That's a way in which you can do it, but there's other ways. But we don't have the ability, apart from a Miles, apart from an Ethan Nwaneri as well. Imagine that the two in the middle of the park, Rice and Zubimendi, they've got someone right on their back and they're facing David Raya. As good as Declan Rice, when Declan Rice is facing play, he's got the ball, you can't stop him. He's a horse. But when he's back to goal, he is also going to play the ball pass. He's not going to drop the shoulder and then turn the guy on his back. That's not his game. That's one of his weak points to his game. Zubimendi, is he going to do that? No, he's going to play the wall pass as well. Martin Odegaard, is he going to do that? No, he'll play the wall pass. Marino, is he going to do that? He'll play the wall pass. Miles is the only one who can do that. And even Nwaneri, when you're talking about someone's on their back, a receive from David Raya, he'll turn and he'll carry. And the moment you do that, you broke the press. You broke the press. Just one individual action, because then the ripple effects mean other players have to come across, they lose their assignments, and then you've got more players free. And then it becomes a cascading effect in which the entire team, the opposition team, is panicking because of this one guy who's broken the press through sheer qualitative quality. And that, I think, for me, is the frustration that people have when they don't see a Miles. Because Miles did it against PSG. If you recall, some of the big saves that Donnarumma made in that first leg against PSG comes initially from Miles. He's got Hakimi on his back, bang, drop a shoulder, turns, space is open, plays the pass inside to Martinelli, and he should score. But we don't. It's a selection thing. It's not a tactical thing, but it becomes an annoyance for people on Mikel when you don't pick him. So this is where, for me, the annoyance with Mikel. And we don't do lineup analysis, and I'm not saying Miles should have started the game against Man City, but this is the frustration when people do point to lineup analysis, because if you play these types of players, you will have different solutions. That's the annoyance, and we don't have enough of them, and the one guy we do have, we don't use him. So, yeah. Rohan,
do you think George has an opinion about this?
Go on, George. Have you been? I think George, I saw a tweet. George was talking about it today, so...
I can't imagine you'd ever have an opinion about this, George.
I am angry. I am trying to hold it in. Because, okay, here, let me start. I will give you the Miles, because honestly, guys, this is ridiculous. And I feel that the fans are owed an explanation, flat out. As far as our game plan goes, let me just analyze there. You guys mentioned that we went long and we didn't win our duels. It goes worse than that. We didn't win any second balls, guys. Every time that we went long, we can call it a player quality issue, but we tried to go over the press in theory, okay? And the team didn't support it. So we went long, and neither Havertz nor Gyökeres were consistent enough about bringing the ball down, but we didn't support it. We didn't back it up once. There was a huge hole, so we didn't even commit to going over the top. We still did it, but the team didn't commit to it. So, fault one, shame on you. As far as going around, this is another issue that I've brought up. The number of passers in the back line. is a significant problem to our buildup. If you are not having, look, it's not so much a problem because we have Raya, so you automatically have one in the back five, always. But guys, we have Kepa. That's not a passer. That is not somebody. So that now you've taken away somebody that can pass the ball in the back line. And we've added Gabriel and Nkapie on the same side of the left-hand side. And we clogged up progression down that way. Weren't able to go around. Why? Because when you have Gabriel Magalhaes, who has been poor, and there needs to be a conversation, in my opinion, about Gabriel's in-possession quality since his injury, which has not been good enough this season. Combine that with Nkapie, who isn't as expansive of a passer as a Calafiori in the back line. You've now removed 3 players in the build-up who, if you've got a 4 zonal, you can't go around because the entire left-hand side lacks passers. So you've now really telegraphed the only position that you can go to, which is Ben White. So now you can't go around. And we saw this, by the way, in the first half. This is where I get very angry. So we saw the entirety was we weren't supporting the press. We couldn't go around, so unless you made a decision to add in Calafiori, to add somebody else in there as another passer in the back line, couldn't even do that. You had Ben White stationed high, so where was the diagonal switch, by the way, guys, to a wide outlet? There was none. So going around the team was taken off the table by those selections. Now we get into Miles. There are only 3 ways, and we've talked about this on the podcast quite a bit. You can go over a press, you can go around a press, or you can go through a press. I have yet to understand nor hear a proper explanation for why Zubimendi, despite being out of form for months, has been allowed to be the primary, not just the primary, but the primary, secondary, tertiary pivot player next to Declan Rice. And we don't see minutes for either Norgard or Miles. And that is before I start tactically telling you why a Miles makes the absolute most sense when you've got a 4 bank in the middle here, okay, with somebody trying to take it on the half turn. Guys, we will have qualitative superiority ahead of the pitch because they've committed 4 high. We will. Now, we actually numerically outnumbered them in the 4 because we would have typically the setup, not to get too nerdy, but we would have Saliba, we would have Kepa, we would have Gabriel, and then ahead of it, we'd have our fullbacks as well as our pivot. So we actually surrounded that 4 with far more players, with 6 or 7 players. So we were committing so many players deep. That immediately shut off the team into a defensive unit and an attacking unit with no transition middle, which is where the space was. So not adding a player that can carry access and then carry into the space of the transition is objectively ridiculous. And it becomes even more of a problem when you don't coach the team to support yourself going over the press, because that's all that we were doing. We would hoof the ball long. Gabriel Magalhaes was very prone to doing it, didn't have composure in the game, kept going long. Kepa would hold onto the ball, dilly-dally on his decision, ultimately go long, and to who? And no one would go to support the 2 strikers. Do you want to know why? Because we had 7 people back in build-up. 7. So I'm frustrated. I'd like an explanation. You're talking about a player who, yes, ignore the Hale End aspect. Guys, we're talking about a player who absolutely gave us a resurgence last season for 6 months. Absolutely injected energy into this team. Had big performances against PSG, against Madrid, at the Bernabeu. You can't tell me that a player like that doesn't have the mentality to come into a final and change things. You can't tell me that that player has to go from that type of progression that he had, that type of platforming that he had, and then he gets to look at his mate, Nico O'Reilly, who's been platformed a lot more and is probably taking a spot in the World Cup, and not tell me that that player looks at the pivot and says, well, I have different qualities that I can solve, and not sit there and say, Mikel, where's the chance? Where is the midfield chance towards it? Where's the midfield chance, by the way, you don't want it to call Miles because it's my favorite person, you want to call it bias. Where's the chance for Norgard? An experienced player that you insisted that the reason that we didn't go young in the summer was to get an experienced player because you trusted that more, right? Where is it? It wasn't done. So from my perspective, there's a lot of issues here tactically in terms of how we approach the game. And it doesn't just have to happen with Miles. From carries from deep. We didn't even do the tactic about going long well because we didn't support second balls once. So that was a big issue. We didn't even support the going around. That was a selection issue because you actively chose Kepa, Gabriel, and Capie and forced play to one side. So you agreed that going through wide areas wasn't going to work. And then I have to sit through comments about how poor Saka is when I sit there and I see that the team can't even access the wide areas. Why? Because we funneled. We were predictable. We set our team up that the right-hand side was going to be the only side that you could progress. What did City do? They put their best duelers on the left, blocked us off, and Bob's your uncle. The team had no solutions. That's where I start to get frustrated because the substitutes that he wanted to bring on in Madueke to stretch, which is something that you can do, Calafiori, means that he knew that was the solution. And this is what annoys me. I'm not saying something that Mikel doesn't know, but that it took you so long to do that. I don't think it's fair. I would love somebody in the media who has a little bit more authority to ask him the Miles question and the Norgard question a lot more directly, because it's the one thing that he has been very hypocritical on through the entirety of the season. And this isn't just a reaction to the cup final. This is a broad stroke in which Zubimendi has struggled. And he has been one of the only players in which we have a different solution towards, guys. We haven't even seen it fail. If I'd seen Miles or Norgard have a 2-3-4 game sample in which we tried to go and give Zubimendi some rest and they didn't rise to the occasion, no problem. I wouldn't be going for Mikel. I'd be going for those players and saying, it is your job. I don't care that you're backup, but you had the chance to rise and you didn't. Thus, you're not going to be played. They haven't even been given the chance. And the way that he's been isolated, I can't reconcile, guys. I really can't reconcile it. If you weren't going to use him, send him on loan. If you weren't going to use Norgard, why didn't we buy a younger prospect that we believed in a lot more? You weren't going to play him either way. So there's just a couple of things that I do think Mikel needs to provide some answers for, because they aren't fair. And if you're talking about it in totality as far as culture and rules and rule setting, this is where the frustration builds for me, for fans, because Mikel likes to throw the culture word, but he doesn't always apply it uniformly. And it comes from the Miles decision. It comes from press conferences in which, again, he highlights we missed a chance and not highlighting Martinelli. And every time Martinelli has started and made a big miss, he highlights Martinelli by name and calls him out in the press conference and doesn't do the same to Havertz. I'm not asking him maybe to call him out, but there has to be a uniform application for when you apply culture, when you apply the margins, and when you look at a tactic that, for me, we had no solutions for. We didn't even commit to a solution. And that is a coaching issue, not an individual issue, in my opinion.
Rohan, you had a thought?
I think just to quickly add on again, I need to rewatch it because I want to see things through my own eyes, right? But the frustration when I was watching it, I was thinking, okay, right, one way is to go long to that right-hand side. You think about it, it's a numbers game, right? If they've got their front four, their winger is high in Doku on that side, and Ben White, and Ben White can then ghost in behind. So you think of that right-hand side right there, yeah? Gyökeres and Kai Havertz provokes a more long ball game anyway, really. That's why I'm not particularly keen on that pair. I just think it restricts you and prevents you from playing freely through the right-hand side with Havertz there. Now, you've got Gyökeres. Ask Gyökeres to pin, well, who was on their left-hand side? It would have been Ake. You pin Ake. You've got the fullback in Nico O'Reilly. You've got Bukayo Saka on him. You push Ben White higher. Let him run towards that side. You've got a 3v2 there straight away. And then you've got Havertz nearby as well. You've got a 4v2 there. And then they'll bring Bernardo Silva to drop a little bit more. So it's 4v3. We've still got a numerical advantage. Then those two pivot players in Rice and Zubimendi push up. Run forward because you know the long ball's coming. And I'm sure we would have won more loose balls. I'm sure. That's one way. I'm not saying that should have been our go-to. I think a lot of people are saying that clip ball to Ben White over the top. There are definitely other ways in which we could have done it. But that's the clearest way. And it just felt like when we did go long, there wasn't the urgency from the two in the midfield to push up. And there wasn't Ben White making those sprints as well to really push the intensity there as well. So, yeah, the more I think of it, I do think Mikel's got a lot wrong in this game, genuinely. And so
I think he has. And I think the frustrating part is not that he can't see it, because I'm sure he can. I think it's partly that maybe the lack of mea culpa, a little bit, that George has referred to, certainly after the game. Not that we're owed, specific, like, I got this X, Y, and Z wrong, but it was a lot about, we'll bounce back and we missed the chance, and it's like, yeah, bro, but they were doing the same thing. I mean, I've rewatched parts of the game to look at some certain sections. Minute 3, they're doing the zonal press. Minute 83, it's the same thing, and we still haven't found a solution all game. Yeah. And you can tell that he knows there's an issue. And I'm kind of, I hear what you guys are saying. I actually don't think it's inaccurate, but I also think we have to be open to the coach to be like, okay, I've got something wrong, and I'm going to put it right in my way. I'm going to find a different way, whether it's putting Saka inside or whatever. There's many different ways around this. It's not necessarily what I think or whatever. But to not change for Calafiori and Madueke till the 65th minute, when it was apparent from minute 3, is like, dude, come on, like that. And that to me is one of the bigger issues. And by that point, we were 2-0 down. In fact, when he was prepping the subs, I think just when we scored. And maybe you could say it's harsh, whatever, but he was punished. And yeah, I also, maybe the final thing before we sort of move on to maybe a bit of a wider discussion and then take some questions, because there's so much of this. And George and I are going to do a mailbag as well for patrons, YouTube members as well. So we'll get into even more post-mortem stuff, because we definitely want to do it. We did also ask if people want a rewatch. We can probably go into it. The final thing was the outball. And I think when City were pinning us in, the consistent, it was Gabriel, it was Trossard as well, consistently hoofing that ball into the channel for Gyökeres. There comes a quality perspective, a quality conversation. Whatever you think about Viktor Gyökeres, he's not faster than Kuzanov. So you can keep playing that ball all afternoon all you like. It's not going to happen. And if your aim, because it was a consistent thing, so to me that feels like an instruction. It was a consistent thing whenever we broke the press, which was only when they really stepped onto us. We'd maybe find Trossard, who was dropping in, which I thought before the game, I'd seen Diaz in the week for Madrid doing that, and I thought we could get some spaces, and I think that did happen. But Trossard would turn and play that ball straight into the channel. And ultimately, you can criticize Gyökeres all you want. Why is someone not saying to Trossard, bro, hold on to it? Because he's never, ever going to win that foot race, ever. Or if you want to play that ball, bring on Martinelli at halftime.
Or do it on the other side.
Or do it on the other side. If that's what you want to do. But it's just never... And I think there's a quality conversation just in terms of our forwards, and, are we even having this conversation if that's Lewandowski instead of Havertz in the first couple of minutes? Probably not. And that we know that about our forwards. But there's also just playing to their strengths. And yeah, I think he got a lot wrong. And I'm kind of open to the he can learn and we move forward stuff, etc., etc. I think that's all valid conversation, and people should be allowed to learn. It's allowed, but it has to translate into tangible differences, tangible things, minutes for certain players, different dynamics, certain things occurring in the team, patterns, and it was like
just to quickly add on that, and it goes back to something that I've been saying for a while, right? Mikel values continuity massively, right? Hincapié starts that game. You've got Gabriel there. You've got Trossard there. There's an element of he is looking to pick players based on allowing them to have continuity in selection, allowing them to build partnerships and chemistry, but not with necessarily balance on paper in mind immediately. That's not his first thought. It's something that he will see in training, or something that he has a vision in mind that he believes will work, but it's a double-edged sword. It sometimes does work that way and you get the chemistry, but equally when you persist with something, it's like when we had Madueke, Gyökeres and Martinelli as a trio, and we saw it once and people were like, I don't want to see this again. But I was like, well, you're going to see it again, because if he's used it once, he's going to do it again. And that left-hand side, teams will funnel us to that side because that is where we're weakest. So you do need to look at ways in which you can maximise that, and not having a Calafiori there, it hinders you, because Hincapié, with his qualities and the fact that I do think that he was done really dirty in that game with the yellow card. It wasn't a yellow card. And then if you look at how he played after, there was an element of timidness there because he's worried about getting a second booking against a Semenyo, right? And And that further compounds the annoyance of why Mikel didn't bring Calafiori on earlier,
There's a lot here. And we'll certainly get into more of it as we go through, I'm sure. In terms of before we answer some questions, where this leaves us in terms of the wider shape of the season, 3 competitions still to play for. Can't believe there were Arsenal fans even talking about a quadruple. It's ridiculous, guys. Come on. Well, you said it there, Rohan. I'll come back to you. Where are you at in terms of the impact this could have on the rest of the season? So obviously City are out of the Champions League now, so they don't have that competition to worry about. We're both in the FA Cup. They have got Liverpool, so they might go out there. Where are you at?
Yeah, so, post 2026, I'd even go back to, just at the end of December, since that Villa's second half at home, I don't think we played very well. And I've said that many times, but I do think the Leverkusen second leg, then the Everton game as well, brought me back in of this is the true Arsenal, right? This is the true Arsenal. This is what we've become accustomed to under Mikel. And against Man City, there are a lot of things we've done wrong there. But I do feel like if there was a game, a high-octane game in one of the competitions that I was willing to feel the pain and for us to learn from, it is this competition. As much as I really wanted to win it, and actually there still is a chance, but Pep Guardiola in his managerial career, right, in a singular season, a manager has never done the double on their head top. And we can still do that. A league and a cup competition. Mourinho didn't do it. Arne Slot didn't do it. Antonio Conte's not done it. Jurgen Klopp's not done it. So there is still a possibility there, and then we could be looking at this season again in many different ways with a lot of positives. But genuinely, I do think we'll learn from this. If you go back to the game against Man City at the Emirates, I don't think Mikel got outclassed in that game. Again, I do think we don't like doing lineup analysis, but I do think the lineup in that first half at the Emirates with no Eze and having Mourinho there and him being the spare man consistently and us finding the solution hindered us. It wasn't big what Man City were doing. It was what we self-sabotaged ourselves in that first half. And then he brought on Eze straight away at half-time. Actions speak louder than words. He knew he made a mistake there. Yep. And I do think that Etihad game is coming soon. And I'm confident that he will learn from it. He's obviously putting a brave face. I don't think you should listen to Mikel post-match when he analyses a game, when he's talking about details. He's not going to give the details. He knows he's messed up in that game. I'm confident he knows he's messed up. He's talking about moments, and he's not wrong with the Kai Havertz chance. And he's saying other bits of spells in the game where they were on top. But he knows deep down, he got schooled in that second half. And I do think we'll react. I think Southampton in the FA Cup immediately after allows us to go back to Wembley. Do you know what I mean? So we can come back to Wembley just like that. We'll win against Southampton. We're in the semi-finals of the FA Cup. And then we've got Bournemouth at home. Man City've still got to play Chelsea next as well. Let's not forget this. And they've got to play Liverpool, as you've just alluded to. It's not over. I don't think we should throw our toys out the pram. I think we should criticise. I think we should reflect. And I agree with you as well. I'm actually happy that this 2-week break has happened, because I think it gives the players a time to reset and really think about it, because I think there weren't many fans at full time. A lot had disappeared. As much as I don't...
Not me.
No. Me and George spoke about it and how I'm never going to police a fan. You do whatever you want to do. I just would never leave. I'd always stay behind. But a part of me thinks with the fans not being there at full time, and the players would have been well aware of that, take that hurt. And realise what you have done here, because you have hurt the fans here, and they were buzzing for this. They were buzzing. Imagine we'd won this. We could have derailed Man City's season. Now what we've done is we've got a Man City team under Pep Guardiola who have said, listen, we're wounded, but we're not over this. And as you've seen, we can still beat you in a one-off game. And that Etihad game's coming thick and fast soon as well. So long way to go. Lots to be positive on. And I do think we'll react. I really do.
I do as well. And I think maybe something we don't always appreciate is, we're watching the game. The game happens, we go about our lives, and the next game happens 3-4 days later. In that interim period, they're not training that much. They're just preparing. They're literally just going like, right, recover, prepare, play the game, recover, prepare, play the game. And with a little bit of space to think and reflect, you can watch games back. New ideas can percolate. New conversations can happen that wouldn't necessarily happen beforehand. And with the players, hope a lot of them being at London Colney to do rest of them recovery or whatever it might be, or hopefully not too much physio. I hope a lot of this is the Klopp and Pep trick with a number of these guys, but let's see. I do think we'll react. I think you made a good point about Wembley as well. Like immediately going back there and sort of righting that wrong, I think will be a good exercise. We move forward to your questions, where you get access to priority questions on our Discord, and you can get there by being a patron or YouTube member, where you'll also get access to all of the ad-free podcasts, exclusive access, exclusive content, all that good stuff. First question from Dinny on the Discord. Classic Dinny. Which player in the squad do you think has the widest discrepancy between the general idea of them as a player versus who they actually are?
Ooh. That's a hard question.
Yeah. Tough one. I mean, it's hard to say, isn't it? Because also it depends what you think of the player. Yeah. I think, let me ask you a different one. Whose opinion on which player in 2026? Yeah, okay, let me ask this. In 2026, whose stock has risen or fallen the most of any player in the squad for you? Could be rise, but could also be fall.
Saliba, as far as a risen. He has been just absolutely imperious. And I think fallen, probably his partner in 2026 in Gabriel consistently. I think Gabriel Magalhaes has had an issue in 2026 that he's not been able to solve in possession. And I think that Saliba's really stepped up in his absence. You could maybe ask yourself, also Trossard's there with a shout, given his early season form as well. I don't think has had something like a shot on target or something in 2026 as well. So from a stock falling perspective, he's probably up there. But I would just say Gabriel, like our center back partnership, they've almost swapped. Like I would say last year there was this feeling that I just felt that Gabriel was so imperious that it was Saliba following Gabriel a little bit. And this season it's been flipped for me. Saliba's gained more and more responsibility. He's shown up more and more, and he's just consistently been somebody that I can rely on, that the whole team is crap except him always. And it's weird. Like, he's so talented. You expect, I don't know. It's weird. I don't think he's got the praise that he's deserved this season, oddly enough. Like, he has been at a crazy level, really shown things that I don't think, we asked of him, and I think he always had, but he just didn't show consistently enough as far as the carries into midfield, the responsibility he's taking, and even some of the passing that he's been able to do, like in terms of going from the back line to midfield, it's been really, really excellent.
I think he's finding, when he's pressed, better and better solutions. It used to be a lot of balls down the line, but he's finding balls into midfield as well now, which is really impressive. I think with Gabriel, my issue with it is I think his best periods at Arsenal have come, correct me if I'm wrong, with Calafiori and Zinchenko next to him. Would that be fair? And I think his worst periods at Arsenal have come with Tomiyasu and Hincapié.
Yeah, that's yeah.
I think there's a pretty strong link between Gabriel being paired with quite a technically savvy 360 left back and looking better. I think it hides his limitations a little bit on the ball, and I think when his partner on that side is a little bit more angle biased, is a little bit more athletic, maybe is a little bit just not as smooth, and in terms of receptions and where they can take it, he's asked a bit. There's a bit more asked of him, and he prefers the ball down the line. He prefers, I think he can look a little bit more shaky. That's my feeling with Gabriel. So I don't disagree that he's been poorer, but I think it is a lot about Hincapié. I don't like that pairing. And it's not that I like both the players, but I don't like the pairing.
Again, we said teams will funnel us to the left-hand side, right? So they know that. Yeah.
Have you seen the passing networks?
No.
It's lopsided with Gabriel much deeper because they're stepping onto him.
Yeah, it's The thing with Gabriel, I actually felt the two previous performances against Leverkusen's second leg and also Everton, I thought he was outstanding. And I thought, right, this is the Gabriel that I really know. Even his passing as well, it felt like it was the Gabriel that we truly know. And it's not a bravery thing for me. Gabriel will attempt the pass. I'd argue Gabriel attempts to pass a little bit more than Saliba. In terms of from the back and then looking to break through. But Saliba's execution is better, whereas Gabriel's execution is lacking, and that's where you get the frustration, because it's a pass in which you expect him to make and it's loose. And then that's how the opposition manages to gain momentum as well, because then you have to start defending. Then it's about, okay, how can I stop us from defending? I've got to jump out, but I can't jump out too early, and that was happening too much in Man City. And that pairing, the problem is like, if you press both, if you're pressing Gabriel towards a touchline, then he passes it to Hincapié and he's towards the touchline. Hincapié is not escaping. He's going to hit the ball down the channel. You know what you're going to get. Yeah. It's going to be a ball in behind. Whereas Calafiori, when he receives it, he's able to mitigate that funneling because he can go two-way. He can go on the inside and he can play it and then you break the structure of the opposition because they're all shifting towards the left. You've got someone who's turned and he's playing it back away from the momentum. And then they've got to shift their body shape and then you've got to go all the way to the other side.
And you don't notice basically that every time the ball goes to Gabriel within about 2 passes, it's back with the opposition. And that's kind of what's happening at the minute.
Have a look at this. So next time you see it, right? So imagine we have the ball and it always happens and they funnel us to the left. Hincapié has it. And let's say Hincapié doesn't go down the channel. Now the opposition has locked us in. So when Hincapié has the ball, the touchline becomes an extra defender and they're working within that quadrant, that entire channel outside the half space. Hincapié will go back to Gabriel. Gabriel just hit it. Just hit it long.
Yeah.
Whereas you don't get that on the right-hand side always, so...
Yeah, I don't love it. I don't love it as a pairing. And I understand why Mikel likes it, but that it says much more about him as a coach and what he likes. And, sort of two warrior types over there on that side. He obviously would love them individually, but he's got to think about balance. And hopefully it's a sort of thing that, a Miguel Molina type, hopefully in an international break and say to him, look at our passing numbers when these two are playing. I know you like them. Pick one. Like you've got to. Not necessarily in every game, but I do think it's a...
I actually also wouldn't... As much as Gabriel's frustrated me, I think my stock that's fallen the most post 2026 is probably Zubimendi.
Rohan, we have a question from Nick on the Discord. He says, what are you seeing in Zubimendi that I'm not seeing? I think he's been bang average and he doesn't excel at anything.
Ooh. I mean, I don't agree with not excelling at anything, but I think he has dipped massively in 2026, and that's a combination of his individual performance levels dropping, but also we haven't managed him very well, if we're being really honest, in terms of the distance he covers. And, there's a lot of talk about Zubimendi and the runs that he makes, and we want him to dictate more. So the reason why you see Zubimendi break off more in comparison to the past is, firstly, Thomas Partey was not able to do that, right? He's not able to break off the last line and make these runs as Zubimendi does. But secondly, we're going back to the rhetoric of man-to-man tendencies, right? Zubimendi typically will be marked by the number 10, right? Because he's the DM. So he's going to be marked by the number 10. And if the game has become more man-to-man, the number 10 is higher up. So Zubimendi making that run, he can immediately decouple away from that number 10 because he wants to stay higher. So then he becomes a spare man. So that's one of the reasons why you see Zubimendi making these runs. And actually, football's a game of fine margins, right? Because if Kai Havertz scores that goal...
Gets the assist.
And what a pass it is.
But where is it though? Okay, the one thing is I hear all that, but I remember us doing the scouted and the grief I got for the comparison originally. I really think that we are looking at a fan base that likes a particular profile, guys. And I don't know if I felt that Zubimendi was that true deep lying playmaker quarterback. He can do it in moments for sure. Zubimendi, I think, has been a little bit misprofiled by the fan base personally. I think his best moments have happened higher as far as his bravery and his inventive passing. It starts to frustrate because a lot of people say, well, if you can be so inventive higher, which is arguably with less angles and arguably under more pressure, why can't you do it deeper with more time and space, right? But the facts of the matter are, he isn't as progressive from deeper as what people are saying, but he becomes more progressive the higher up the pitch he goes. In 1-2 touch situations, Zubimendi's spatial awareness is what is the superpower, not the pass. And I think a lot of people thought that they were getting their high touch, deep lying playmaker. I really do. And that's part of the problem. So when we sit there and we say there's all that minute context, which I agree with you, Rohan, on, he's completely outplayed. I mean, we all know the numbers, how many minutes he's played, how many sprints, and what he's done within the team. We've just spent the first 20 minutes in which I went on a rant as far as the Norgard, Miles Lewis-Skelly help with that. So all that is context. But I also do think that people have just had a really different profiling issue with Zubimendi. And I think we're still working on it, by the way, as a team. And Mikel, I'm going to say it. I think you need to start looking at him through the lens of a Gundogan. And in terms of what made his passes the most influential.
Do you not think, though, like, and I'd be interested to look at this, I'm pretty certain, right? If you look at Zubimendi's touches, and from the start of the season till December, and then you look post 2026, I'm pretty sure there's been a massive drop off in the number of touches that he's actually having in the game.
But he's switched.
Yeah.
Because Rice has got deeper and he's gone higher.
But the thing is, Joe, in the first half of the season, I did see Zubimendi do the ability to drop out and then dictate and play passes and have the tempo and control the game. We saw it in pre-season as well, and that's the frustration that I'm having as to why I'm not seeing him stamp his authority more in games. Would you two not feel like in the first half of the season we were seeing Zubimendi do these things, and in terms of allowing us to set the tempo, control the game, alongside breaking beyond the midfield line and ghosting in behind the back line? Do you know what I mean?
I'd probably be more on your side there, Rohan. But I think what George said about the thing that we're after isn't quite what Zubimendi is. So I hear that in terms of, I think he was deeper, and I think he had more influence, he had more touches. But people want Adam Wharton, and I don't. That's for me. That's not. If he's deeper, he might lay it off, but then he's doing a decoy run to create some space for someone else. He's doing all the stuff that, when you really look into it, you're going, oh, guy's doing a lot of stuff. So in a game like this, where you're not doing any of that stuff, he looks like he's being bypassed. Basically, it just looks like he's not really in the game. This is why I personally always favoured someone like Adam Wharton, because then you get someone who can sit on that ball and dictate the play. I watched Modric in that first half for us before we scored the free kicks and in the 3-0. Modric, even in that little, but it wasn't even really a good game from him. You just see a level, mate. And whether Adam Wharton gets to that point, who knows? But he's 21, right? We want that profile. We want someone to put their studs on the ball and half turn, take it on the back foot, all that sort of stuff, 1-2s, etc., etc. And I just don't think that's quite what Zuba, or certainly not what he's being instructed to do, at least.
I think that there was different phases of this midfield, though. Like, when you look at it at the beginning of the season, like, I do think that he was asked to do that role and he could do it, Rohan. But the thing is, we've seen Declan Rice become deeper and him become higher as the season's progressed. And I do think that also has kind of been paired with Eze. Like, okay, midfield is all about partnerships, not just the players that make up a pivot, right? So there was a reason for me that when Martin Odegaard predominated many of the months at the beginning of the season, prior to his injury, and then even afterwards when Eze went through that period where he was kind of banned and Odegaard was primarily playing, we saw Zubimendi be a little bit deeper and Rice be a little bit higher. That was because, Martin Odegaard likes to drop off a little bit, and I think that Zubimendi filled in the playmaking hole and we asked Rice to be the stretcher. Now, when you switch that number 10 with an Eze who's a bit higher up, that thrust comes from the right-hand side, who's a bit deeper, and now it shifts. Now Zubimendi comes a little bit more inside, and it's Rice who becomes a bit deeper, because now you've switched some of the dynamics. Instead of Rice stretching, it's been Eze. So now Rice comes deeper. And when you ask those questions, you start to say, okay, what also has happened through the course of this season? We've seen a little bit more over-reliance on that fullback getting into the half space thing. And it starts to push people in areas where I think they don't prefer. So I don't think it's that Zubimendi can't do the deep-lying playmaker role. I think he can. But when you're talking about his passes as a whole, where is he most progressive on an individual level? Not necessarily with high touches, but with like his progressive passing, I find he does his best work higher. And in 1 or 2 touches, he's a lot more inventive through scoop passes, through his variation of pass is a lot higher the higher up he goes. And that's a really difficult thing because I actually don't think as a coach, you normally assume that of players. Typically, the higher you go, the less progressive they go because it's harder. It's deeper. When you've got more time and space, you tend to be more progressive and innovative. But it's weird. Zubimendi's the complete opposite as a player for me.
He's like, just to go back to that point that both of you basically, and Alex talking about Adam Wharton, you're wanting a Granit Xhaka type passing ability from deep. Yeah. Someone like who does it in that way, as Zinchenko, in terms of how he's able to thread it in the most tightest of spaces. Yeah. Like, you think of if Zinchenko, right, with all his faults, and then Granit Xhaka, with all his faults as well, and a really good servant for Arsenal. But if Granit Xhaka, let's say, was in where Gabriel was standing, he would have played passes through that block. 100%. Do you know what I mean? So I think maybe that's the frustration that you're probably alluding to with the Adam Wharton as well.
It's really hard to tell whether it's Arteta or it's Zubimendi or whoever it is. I think maybe the only maybe caveat I'd put to that is Declan Rice's influence on the team so big that sometimes a lot of it is like basically not get out of the way, but like Dec's going to come and take it off the centre backs, and then Dec's going to run back. He's everywhere, and if you've got a player who is absolutely everywhere, then your midfield partner is going to be slightly shifted. So I think I take the tactical point as well, but there is slightly Declan Rice runs this football team, so if we want something to happen in the midfield, it's going to be Declan Rice, most likely on the end of the ball or receiving it or dropping out wide or whatever. I think sometimes Zubimendi could just play second fiddle slightly, and that might be part of it as well. Let's do this question from Serena. Which players in the attack are good enough to stay at Arsenal? Enjoy that one, boys.
When there's, I'm pretty sure, right? You could go back to previous podcasts. Whenever we lose or it's adversity, there's always this type of question because we know it's always about the attack, isn't it?
Can I ask you? Would you? Okay, you're in the summer. Move on. We've done this. How much? Forget the types and where and replacing. How much investment do you feel the attack needs? And is it above 100 million?
I will say
easily.
Yeah. But I would say we need, slightly different way of answering the question, 2 above £100 million market value players. That might be £30 million that ends up being a superstar, but we need 2 players of that quality, I think. Look,
after spending 200 million the year before.
Yeah. No, it's no, mate, we've spoken about it before. It's not good enough. I think Trossard has served his purpose, and I think what Eze can do off the left, he can fill in those sort of dropping into the midfield, creating the overloads type stuff. I think, and I appreciate what Trossard's done for the club, but I think it's time for him to move. Gabriel Jesus, if I wasn't done with him before, he lost the ball at about 84 minutes, and he just put his head down like this while everyone chased back, and I was like, you're 29 years old. Get back in shape. Like, don't.
He's gone, mate. He's gone.
He's gone. So I think Jesus was brought on because he maybe occasionally, once upon a time, could create a moment for you, but I don't know. I think that moment's gone. Yeah. Madueke, I'm willing to give some more time to, especially as a winger. I think he deserves a little bit more time. I don't think he's a starter for me yet, but he's there. Kai is a really important member of the squad and is a really important tactical cog in this team. I think especially without Mikel Merino, he's so important to us. Victor Gyökeres, look, we've had so many conversations about him. He created 0.0 XG and 0.0 expected assists in a cup final. My position is basically the same. He can do certain things, but he is not going to change our world. So if you offered me our money back and an upgrade in the summer, I'd do that. But if we're going to sell him and then not replace him, then I think that's stupid. Martinelli, squad player for me, someone who can contribute in certain moments, really, really suits certain game states. As I've always said, if he's a player who I think if you sell him, you have to replace what he does. But I think he's a really good squad player, especially if we start using him down the middle. Please God, we might actually get some more use out of him. And the only other one is Saka, who I think should end up being a 10. So I think we've still not quite sorted our 9. We're probably losing, for me, our right winger, potentially. And we haven't got a left winger.
I'm telling you, mate, who was the blue?
Mikel Merino. Yeah, it's a mad scenario. It is a mad scenario, and I take your point, George, that like for Arsenal to be in this situation is pretty wild. But I look around and I look at Liverpool. They have disruption, has spent a lot on their attack, and they haven't got it right. Man City, there's only one Erling Haaland, and they've looked like they've signed something in Semenyo, but he's not necessarily.
He wasn't good yesterday, by the way.
Yeah,
He's
been in terrible form. So like, it's not just the situation isn't good, but I don't want it to just be isolated to Arsenal. There's an attacking problem in football right now.
Yeah.
So it's not just us, but we need to spend more money, which is wild.
I genuinely do think that the recruitment. I'm willing to have that conversation in terms of our attacking recruitment now. I actually think the recruitment outside of that has been fantastic, genuinely fantastic in terms of the players that we brought in, and we look at their individual performances, what they've offered to the team. You go from the moment Mikel came through the door to now. I think there are very few misses, but I think that the summer and what we did acquire. I want more, I want more from these. Even Madueke, I think Madueke has had good moments, but he needs to do more. He needs to do more. Eze, who I think he's started to get into a really good moment, and he's class, and he's got the quality. But again, Gyökeres as well. Again, I think he's doing better. And I don't think he was the worst, actually, of our attacking players yesterday. I actually think he might have been probably the...
Yeah, that's what we were saying.
You know what I mean? I'll watch it back, but yeah, it's quite sad. I'm up for having a refresh. I'm up for changing my mind on a lot of these players. I just think there's a lot of players here. I think I'm not going to get on Trossard because I think what Trossard has given me this season, I didn't expect. I thought last season was the final season which we're going to extract the most out of Trossard. He's given me that this season. Yes, he's not been good post 2026, but I don't think we can forget his efforts in the first half of the season. Do you know what I mean? So,
and his age, and there's all that conversation to be had. Look, we just need a refresh, and I think the frustrating part is how long we've been trying to get this right. But I mean, at least as we said last summer, at least it's a clear problem. I do also think if we had Eze available yesterday, it's a different game. Like I think you're never as far and you're never as near. It could be one player and then finding, let's say Madueke absolutely fires on the right-hand side. We find Saka on the inside. Martinelli comes back to life and we sign a 9. We could be having a completely different conversation. You know what I mean? You're never as far and you're never as near. So I don't know. But George, I'm sure you've got a thought.
I think that we need to have a serious conversation about where we see Bukayo Saka in the team. Because it changes quite a bit for me. And it changes quite a bit for what we need as a recruitment strategy, quite a bit as well. I'm not going to be opposed to the idea that he's been through a rough patch of form. I've kind of done my defending of him on the channel, so I'm not going to use my time at the end of the pod to do that. But I do think having an analysis of his performances, where he's best and where we see the future for the next 3-4 years after having signed him on a 5-year contract to be our highest paid player needs to be the priority before we start talking about where we find the holes and what we need to do. And, you have a look at it. We do just factually have a phenom in Max Dowman who isn't just knocking on the door. He's through, mate. Like he is a factor next season. So we have found another 60 million plus, I still call it £100 million asset, but we found one there that we don't have to pay for.
Yep.
And you combine that with Madueke, you combine that with, by the way, with Ethan Nwaneri coming back, you combine that with a Bukayo Saka, you've got an Eze, you combine that with our captain. There's a lot of players around the right hand side in the number 10 spot that have talent. We're talking at least 7 players. So a major sale is going to have to come. An unpopular sale will have to come factually for me when you've got... Actually, let's just do that. It's Madueke, it's Dowman, it's Saka. It's Eze, it's Odegaard, it's Ethan Nwaneri. That is 6 players between 2 positions of right wing and 10.
Munoz.
It's too much.
Was he 14?
Yeah, we can't do that right now.
Do you know what the thing is, though? Just sorry to quickly come in there, Josh, but like, Mikel gives you small nuggets of information, right? That Everton game, when he brought Max Dowman on, Saka went inside, right? And he
I know.
did start Saka at Wolves as well inside. And we said it.
I know.
Mikel try something. It's something that he has envisioned.
Andy went 10 again yesterday, and I think it's those are game states as well from Everton and against City, where those are big game states. They're chasing a game in a Premier League, and in a Carabao Cup final, he's putting Saka inside. That tells you something.
Look, I'm leaning toward, like, I know I've been calling from the beginning of the season. I think that's a likely trajectory, but I guess what I'm saying is, regardless of whatever move, if you want to keep Saka right wing and you want to introduce Max at 10 or vice versa, it's going to demand, naturally, having a talent like Max like that with Ethan coming back. It's going to leave questions on the importance of our captain. It's going to leave questions because we've now found 2 ALN talents, or you want to sell a ALN talent. It's basically, take your poison. You want to sell the captain, in your opinion, or a super young ALN talent that clearly has got the world ahead of him and can offer us solutions that no one in that team does as well, as far as being so potent in front of goal. Like Ethan Nwaneri, people forget, like, he is a finisher. Out of all that collection of talent, Saka, Odegaard, Eze, I would say Ethan's the best finisher of the group, and by a good margin. So everyone offers a quality that's different. I'm just saying, between 2 positions, you've got 6 talent. That's a redundancy. Then you look at the left-hand side. We're saying Trossard's potentially had his day. Martinelli, we think, is good enough to be depth, but even then, you could ask yourself for an upgrade in that position. Beyond that, Eze could be there with a more overlapping left back. Do you go for an Alejandro Balde to reinvent Eze in the Grealish mold? You could. You could do those things. Do you go in recruiting a proper left winger, like, a Yan Diamande? There's, the world's your oyster, but I guess what I think we want to have is a serious conversation about how we see Eberechi Eze and Bukayo Saka with the plethora of talent that we already have. And are we talking about either of these talents being pillars or rotation pieces? And once we define that, I think then you can start talking about holes, because personally, it becomes a little bit redundant because there's always a case that I can make a replacement for.
Yeah, that's spot on.
No, I hear that. And I, as I said earlier, we've got to spend big money this summer, and you can roll your eyes at that and go, be frustrated. But Saka, Dauman, Havertz, Madueke, Ethan, there's a lot of pieces. Eza, there's a lot of pieces around. It's just about working out how to fit them, and you're never as far and you're never as near, as I always say. So it's a big conversation, but there's a lot of talent. We just haven't used it, I think.
And a lot of other clubs like Man City, exactly. They spent how much on Marmoush, and they bring and how much have they spent on Savio? It's like 30 odd million. It's still a decent sum of money. They're looking to move him on. So as bad as it has been, the other teams are also.
The one thing that I do want to end on, just by listing those players that you just listed, Alex, there's one glaring thing, and that is searing pace. A true touchline option. It's only Madueke. We talked Eze, Saka, Dauman, Ethan. We've got the ball to feet players. So I really want to encourage us to start looking at that talent, regardless of whatever we look at. Like, that has to be the priority for me. And it can look in different positions, but a true straight line running power forward that people have the fear of God with, as far as pace, needs to be something that we recruit.
Mbappe looks quite good. Strong game.
He does. Vinny Jr., mate.
Hey. Do you feel better? Like, I genuinely haven't felt that bad today. Genuinely, like. So yeah.
Not yet, but that's fine. That's fine. And I think I kind of wanted to end here. Like, this has to hurt, and that's okay.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
People aren't going to like this. I don't really care at this point. I have a speciality in winding up Arsenal fans. You lose games. It happens. You make mistakes. It happens. And I think to expect no team. Well, City went out in the Champions League. What was it? 5-1 on aggregate to Real Madrid. Are they washed? Are they bottlers? No, they just beat us. It happens. It's sport. The point is, what, as we said at the top of the podcast, what can we work on, and what do we need to? And also, Mikel talks about it all the time. What do you need to keep working on to keep at the same level, and and not allowed to drop off? What's got you to this point to keep doing the same habits and stuff that keep you there? You're never as far as you feel when you've just you're sat there for 8 minutes, 9 minutes after the final whistle, as I was, hearing the da, 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 and just like thinking about everyone I want to shoot. You're never as far away as you are in that moment. And so yeah, it's just always trying to be like, okay, what can we do? What can we improve? What can we improve? And that is the mindset, whether you like the coach or not, that is the mindset of this coach. And I am pretty confident that this is going to be a bit of a turning point. We'll talk more about it. Obviously, there's lots of stuff to come off that game. But I don't know. I look at the position that we're in all three competitions, and I do feel there's going to be an inflection point.
Final thing from me. What I did love is Ryan Cherky showboating there, Ben White, bang. I need that. I needed that then. And I'm telling you now, I might be reading too much into it, but I think Ben White's like, don't do that to us. You know,
I'm sorry, Ben White locked up Doku.
And do you know the thing is, right? This is a Ben White who's been through the mill. He's rugged. He's been worn out, and he tried his absolute best. And I really like that, because I think the showboating there, I didn't like it. I mean, you can do that when you're winning, right? But I think that Ben White leaving that on him there, I think it's just a little sign of, listen, you've won today.
I mean, he's such a leader. I'm sorry. Like, I know we're ending.
There's still the FA Cup. There's still the Premier League. And we're still in the Champions League, mate. So they have the last right now.
He's not written his story in an Arsenal shirt, in my opinion. Ben White has something to give us in the last 2 months of the season.
I'm telling you, we're winning this league. And then all those Man City fans, yeah.
Did you ever play Call of Duty? And when you lose a team deathmatch, the guy goes, "Was it soap?" He'd be like, "We lost the battle, but we haven't lost the war," or so. It was something like that.
Yeah. That's exactly what Ben White probably said to Cherky there in that voice. We've
lost the battle, but we have not lost the war, and that's what we've got to hold on to. Right, okay, therapy partly over. We'll be back with some more therapy later on in the week. George and I will do a little mailbag episode for patrons and YouTube members. Probably not loads of rewatch content and things like that to go on this week, as I don't think anyone wants to do that. But we will be back as always with your regularly scheduled stuff. Thank you, Rohan.
Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, good sir.
Thank you for listening and watching. We'll get through this international break. You and I, we can do it. Thank you so much for watching, and thanks for keeping it Arsenal.
Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. This was one kind of queue the ladies thoroughly enjoyed.
Electrifying. Electrifying. Inspiration.